And hey everyone, this is Geocacher TN Photobug recording live, or right now recording live, at the Elliott Museum here in Stuart, Florida. I came here last year and filmed the whole museum, so be sure to check out that video. I'll be sure to put a link in the description below. But this year I'm visiting again, and there's another really cool exhibit I wanted to show you. So I guess here it makes sense. This museum is named after a guy named Sterling Elliott, who was an inventor. Let me read this to you. He invented bicycles and a few other things. Let's check this out. The Elliott Museum, a tribute to genius and generosity. This museum is named for Sterling Elliott, an inventor, a manufacturer, social reformer, and publisher. Elliott already had 11 patents when he achieved one for bicycles in 1888. He made bicycles until the late 1890s and then founded the Elliott Addressing Machine Company in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The company made machines that addressed, folded, and wrapped magazines. Sterling Elliott died in 1922. His son Harmon then managed the company. Harmon, a seasonal resident of Stuart, right here, sold the company in 1956. A few years later, he donated money to the Martin County Historical Society to build a museum to honor his father. Harmon also purchased objects from the Salem Auto Museum and Americana shops for the collection. The museum outgrew that first building by 2000. The Elliott R. Donnelly family then contributed major funding to launch a capital campaign for a new building. Hundreds of donors responded. As a result, in 2013, the new Elliott Museum opened. Now ready to inspire future generations, it is a tribute to genius and generosity alike. There's a picture of Sterling Elliott himself. And here's that sign I just read to you. Here's another sign. It says Sterling Elliott, inventor and manufacturer. Sterling Elliott observed how things worked and how things didn't work. Then he devised a number of inventions that made a real difference in the world. Playing with strings tacked to a cabinet floor, Sterling Elliott invented a new way to steer vehicles. Fiddling with string during church sermons, he invented a machine to tie knots to bind magazines. Struggling to mail his weekly magazine, Elliott invented a machine to update address changes. And observing harness racing sulky drivers perched high between spindly wheels, he invented a low-frame sulky that sported bicycle wheels. The steering mechanism solved the problem of a dragging inside wheel. That problem had vexed wagon drivers for centuries. The business machine also processed subscription renewals. It revolutionized the magazine business and predated the computer by decades. The new sulky shattered the world speed record and changed sulkies forever. Elliott also designed a bicycle especially for female riders. He entered manufacturing with this hickory bicycle. It marked Elliott's first use of humor in advertising. The business machine achieved volume manufacturing and international sales. The knot-tying machine earned Thomas Edison's admiration and claimed that Elliott was a genius. And here is the Elliott Addressorette circa 1935. Selling for about half the price of a typewriter, the Addressorette brought mechanical addressing to the masses. Its advertising explained that businesses could buy several of these machines and then move their mailing processes from head offices to branches. Their mailing lists could more accurately be compiled and sorted. Then number 2 is the Elliott Experimental Treadle Bicycle, circa 1880. Elliott was on a quest for a comfortable bicycle that would accommodate a woman's long skirt. So he rethought the bicycle's basic design. This experimental model is driven by a treadle action with a ratcheted rear hub. His patent drawing for a tricycle of similar design. Here we are finding another sign. It says Sterling Elliott, social reformer. Sterling Elliott had strong convictions and took risks to promote them. As publisher of the Bicycling World magazine, Elliott's wit, persistence, and drive commanded attention. He used his voice to fight for equal rights for women, minorities, and even those who went to the theater. Elliott opposed the vote of the National League of American Wheelmen, LAW, to ban African Americans from participating in bicycle races. So he invited Marshall Major Taylor to race in his home state of Massachusetts, where Elliott was a law official. This opened the way for Taylor to become the first black world champion cyclist. He also was the second black world champion athlete in any sport. Bantamweight boxer George Dixon was the first. At the time, most bicycle manufacturers feared losing male customers if they catered too much to women. Elliott, however, designed a bicycle for women and openly marketed it to them. This had nothing to do with pandering to women. He also introduced a bill in Massachusetts that required women to remove their high hats in all of that state's theaters. In so doing, Elliott demonstrated that he suffered no interferences, whether it was in reaching a potential new market or enjoying the show on the stage. And here on exhibit number 3 is Elliott stencil cutting machine circa 1940. Elliott's addressing machines pushed ink through metal-framed address cards that initially were made on this stencil cutting machine. However, the metal frames tended to bend, so Elliott invented a fiber stencil. It evolved into an address card that could be cut on an ordinary typewriter using an attachment as illustrated. And number 4, Elliott Hickory quadricycle, circa 1889. This quadricycle featured Elliott's patented steering knuckles at the ends of a non-swiveling front axle. This system allowed the inside wheel to follow the shortest radius, that eliminated the sideways scuffing that had plagued the horse-drawn vehicles for centuries. Light and resilient hickory wood was used where possible. And finally, one last sign here. It's a really cool exhibit about Sterling Elliott and the bicycles he promoted and invented. It says Sterling Elliott, crusading publisher. Bicyclists formed the League of American Wheelmen Law in 1880 to advocate their causes. By the late 1890s, more than 100,000 law members were a national force. As the law president, Sterling Elliott published his magazine, The Bicycle World, to demand a reform. At the time, bicyclists left the city to ride in the country, but they were harassed there. Horsemen didn't want to share the road. Farmers charged tolls to pass their properties. Hotels refused lodging. In response, Elliott promoted roadside directional signs and encouraged etiquette on the road. He asked the government to build paved roads and end farmers' tolls. He encouraged bicycle clubhouses that welcomed cyclists. In addition, he appealed to railroads to carry bicycles as freight. Elliott also encouraged women to ride bicycles in opposition to the objections of many men. That action likely placed him at the greatest risk of all by those who opposed him. And on exhibit here, number 5, the Elliott knot tying machine circa 1882. Sterling Elliott invented this pamphlet stitching machine that could tie a knot. The knot is illustrated in his patent drawing. An impressed Thomas Edison invited Elliott to Menlo Park, saying, "I want to shake the hand of a genius." This machine never went into production because staples replaced threads. Number 6, Elliott Hickory bicycle circa 1890. Other manufacturers offered women altered men's bicycles, but Elliott designed a bicycle just for women. The low frame accommodated long skirts, and shields on moving parts prevented tangled clothes. Elliott then pioneered humorous advertising to fight competitors' claims as hickory wood parts would break. Finally, number 7, Elliott addressing machine circa 1940. In 1897, Sterling Elliott invented a machine that stamped hand-keyed addresses into metal stencil plates. Ink was forced through the stencils directly onto the printed piece. This machine sorted and updated addresses decades before the computer. Last 2 artifacts in this little section. Here's a bicycle. I'm sure maybe invented by Elliott or something has to do with him. Really cool. Unfortunately, there's no sign. And then here's a reproduction, a really cool old car. It's the 1886 Benz Patent Motor Wagon, which is pretty cool. Well, that was pretty cool. I had no clue before of Sterling Elliott, of him being an inventor, inventing improvements on the bicycle. I'd like to let me know in the comments below. Had you ever heard of Sterling Elliott before this video? I'd love to know what you think. And yeah, so let's continue on, see what other cool things we can discover here at the Elliott Museum here in Stuart, Florida. Okay, check this out, folks. I came here last year, loved the old cars, and I'm like, I'm not going to film the old cars again because it's going to be the same stuff. But check it out, they have some new old cars. Let me show you, this is awesome. A 1909 Ford Model T touring car. Look at that. That's cool. (1912) Ford Model T Speedster. 1905 Oldsmobile Runabout. 1953 Cunningham C3 Continental Cabriolet. A 1925 Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost Pall Mall Tourer. 1966 Ford Mustang Coupe. 1965 Porsche 356C Coupe. A 1931 Ford Model AA mail truck. 1931 Ford Model AA fire truck. And a 1931 Ford Model AA flatbed truck. Coolness. Hey everyone, Geocaching and Floodbug here. We're now on the second story of the Elliott Museum. Here's a really cool replica of Hugh L. Willoughby's pelican plane. Check this out. Hugh Willoughby was intellectually curious and athletically skilled, and he was keenly interested in the new machines that helped humans travel at high speeds. Eventually, Willoughby helped transform transportation and racing sports. He developed many of his inventions while living in his winter home in Sewell's Point here in Martin County. As a young man, Willoughby had many interests and the means to pursue them. He raced a car from Philadelphia to Newport, setting a new record of a little more than 20 hours. At the University of Pennsylvania, he was the first intercollegiate champion athlete. Willoughby then began designing airplanes. In 1908, he wrote to Orville Wright about his 1909 Warhawk biplane and 1911 Pelican Hydra airplane. Airplane is the replica that's here. He assisted Orville Wright on some of his early flights and designed dirigibles and speedboats. He even helped the U.S. Navy develop submarines. Pictures right there. Replica of the 1911 Pelican Hydra airplane. Hugh Willoughby was a sportsman and visionary inventor who lived in nearby Sewell's Point during the winter. He envisioned his Pelican Hydra airplane as a way to travel faster than a speedboat over water and still be safe. Willoughby intended his Hydra airplane for sportsmen who wanted to safely pursue the thrill of fast boating and flying. Pelicans in flight inspired his design. It was meant to fly in the best wind a few feet above water. For steering, the plane had unique double rudders that mimicked pelicans' use of their heads and tails for steering. Willoughby knew that many people feared flying during aviation's infancy, so he explained if anything went wrong, the Pelican would simply light on the water and essentially become a motorboat thanks to its watertight floats. Willoughby's vision appealed to few others, and the Pelican never went into production. And here we are, I think, at one of my favorite parts of the Elliott Museum so far, a little community history museum. Talks about the history of Stuart, this area. See pictures like Witham Field, where I believe some sailors or other soldiers or aviators trained during World War I or II, I believe, probably II. Some different pictures. Let's head on inside. All sorts of cool stuff. Here's a picture of Harmon Elliott, Sterling Elliott's son. Here's just a bunch of cool items. Looks like a general store. Reminds me of. You can see here. Now, as you along here, talks about the treasure that was lost. The different ships have been sunk. This area. I wouldn't be surprised if some of this stuff is has been recovered from those ships. Talks about Jonathan Dickinson there. The role of the sad history of the Seminole Indians in Florida's history that were the wars that took place and how they were kicked out of Florida. These are some Seminole Indian games and clothes here. You just see more area items, pictures, stories. This is an original door from one of the packing houses. It's really cool. This here, all sorts of items. You can see this picture right here is President and Mrs. Grover Cleveland. Right there, I believe. Oh yeah, and this looks like a whole bunch of stuff belonging to President Cleveland. Neatness. More history about Grover Cleveland and Hubert and Bessie in this area. Talking more about the Treasure Coast. Pretty cool stuff. There's where we just came from. This little area is kind of like maritime history of the area, talking about the water and the fishing. Important. Here's a picture of several boats. And down here looks like some saws or something like that. The boat construction up there. Over here though is pretty cool. There's some boat engines. Not sure the names or specifics, but still thought you'd enjoy seeing them. That's pretty cool here. Really neat stuff. Looks like Evinrude family. They're Evinrude engines here. Pretty neat. Neat to see the stuff. Hey everyone, it's been a lot of fun to come back to the Elliott Museum. I thought I had seen and filmed everything last year, but there's a lot of cool things that I saw this year. It was a lot of fun. Got to learn about Sterling Elliott as an inventor, learn how he invented bicycles. Got to see all the new cool old cars here at the Elliott. The Pelican hydro airplane, the cool exhibits on Stuart area history, and some of the boats here have been neat. So hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out more of my videos at youtube.com/tnphotobug. And until next time, this is Geocacher TN Photobug signing out. I'm indeed having a blast from the past.